Standup Comedy, your host and MC, presents Comedy Appetizers, a podcast where you will find short comedy sets, stories, and funny bits from the famous and not so famous. Here is your host and MC, Scott Edwards.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another special group of jokes, bringing some funny. My good friend, American Indian comic Marc Yaffee. He's been doing some cruises, he's been doing some casinos, and he's here with us today to share some jokes. Ladies and gentlemen, Marc Yaffee. Marc, it's great to have you back on the show. We just went through a terrible couple of years of COVID shutdowns and lockdowns. How's it going for you out there in the comedy world?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, my Caucasian American friend, Scott Edwards. It's comedy.
I get it.
Oh, we always got to give each other grief. But, I'm in my, I think I'm in the COVID bounce back. I think I'm still having the PTSD as a lot of us, because that COVID took a lot out of us. I'm just glad to go to shows and see people dressed as functioning adults in public again.
Yeah, that's so
right?
true. Yeah, no,
COVID
everybody...
COVID was a medical and fashion catastrophe.
It really was. People would go out wearing pajamas and...
every day was Walmart Day.
Every day
really,
was
honey,
Walmart Day. I love that.
Really? Honey, you're going to go out to the store in Snuggie and high heels, really? I saw this one guy. This one guy was wearing hiking boots, swim trunks, dress shirt, bandana. I mean, look at this idiot. It was my reflection in the Burger King window.
Well, it really was interesting how COVID affected fashion. I hadn't really thought about it. That's hilarious.
Yeah. And grooming standards, right? Because remember, for a while during lockdown, you could get haircuts. There was no beard trimmings, no laser removal, no waxing. For a while there, we were all honoring our knees.
That's true. Kind of a little Cro-Magnon coming back.
Exactly. But I think that, the COVID, to me, it amplified the blue state, red state divide, the Crips and Bloods, because depending on where you were residing at the time of the pandemic, it was two completely different perspectives. Like if you were in a blue state, the pandemic was the worst thing that happened since the Black Plague of the 1300s. If you were in a red state, it was the worst hoax since Milli Vanilli.
Oh, that's hilarious, Marc.
Right? And then you think like, what was the lockdowns? What a blue state lockdowns lasted maybe 3 or 4 months. Red state, they lasted maybe 2 or 3 happy hours.
Well, I think the lockdowns lasted more than a few months, sadly. It went on and on, it felt like. But
yeah. But depending on where you live, though, right? Because even if you went out to eat, like during COVID, eventually you could go to a restaurant, but a blue state dining experience, way different than a red state. Like in a blue state, if you went out to eat, you were literally outside on a 5-story parking garage at the very top, a mile from the restaurant. And they made you still wear a mask. They fed you by IV drips. You wouldn't open your mouth and chew. In a red state, like Florida or Texas, if you went out to eat, you had to eat inside. They burned your mask when you walked in the lobby. They made you lick the menu and share utensils to prove you were not a COVID co-conspirator.
That is so true. It is funny how we were already in kind of a political divide between Biden and Trump, and then you had COVID, and because each of the states, I think that's genius material, Marc. Everybody had a different take on it. That's great stuff.
Thank you. And then my last one is the mask, right? Even how we approach the mask. Like in a blue state, people wearing masks to Zoom meetings. In a red state, people were showing up at Sam's Club with no mask or pants. I'm like, freedom!
It's funny and true. That's what's so funny about it, Marc, is that you nailed it. These are all things that we all experienced and saw during COVID.
Well, I'm hoping people aren't sick of it because, I really want to get it all out of my system in one just block of material. I'll leave you with this one, Scott. This is my scary story, but it wasn't even that scary. It was bizarre. I was with my daughter in the Bay Area. We were in Berkeley, so she took me to some non-binary bagel bistro, candle store, apothecary, thrift shop, and I got in trouble. The head barista, lead cashier / chief of security, Willow, got in my face about my mask. Sir, that doesn't appear to be an eco-friendly, sustainably harvested, 100% organic cotton mask, hand woven in a Bolivian woman's feminist collective. So, no more shopping in Berkeley.
Yeah, Berkeley tends to take things not 1 or 2, but maybe 5 or 10 steps too far. Hey, that's some really funny stuff, Marc. Thanks so much for sharing it with my audience. Ladies and gentlemen, very talented headlining comic, Marc Yaffee. He's out performing at clubs, cruise lines, and casinos. And he's got a podcast site. Tell him about your podcast.
Well, right now it's of course now I'm in hiatus, which is a really fancy way of saying I don't think I paid my streaming bill. But it is, how does that happen? There's some episodes that are actually stored. Also, I'm going to get that going again. And how does that happen? And then they can also find me on TikTok and other social media by going to my website, Laugh with Marc, M-A-R-C. My parents couldn't spell, laughwithmarc.com. And it has a link to my Dry Bar comedy special. So please watch that, and I get paid at least 1/374th of a penny every time you look at it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, go to Dry Bar Comedy and look up Marc Yaffee, or go to the new Standup Comedy Podcast Network. You'll find his podcast there as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to say thanks to Marc, and everybody just keep listening. We'll be back on Sunday with another great show. Thanks, Marc.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Comedy Appetizers. Be sure to share with family and friends, and we will see you this Sunday for our regular podcast, your host and MC, and again next Friday for another episode of Comedy Appetizers. Bye!